I'm Audrey Strickland.
And I'm Charlotte Sanford.
You're tuning into Binah News, where we discuss the latest stories in Egypt and surrounding countries in the Middle East and North Africa region. Today is May 12th, 2051, and we'll be covering the topic of water scarcity in our region.
Now that climate change has severely altered precipitation patterns, viewers across the MENA region are experiencing consistent drought conditions. Water scarcity is when the demand for water is not being met by the available supply, and in the past it has often been caused by extreme population growth and poor allocation of resources.
But now the main cause is due to climate change. Later we'll hear from our lead reporter, Keha-Olsen, who will interview a few citizens who have been strongly affected by these conditions and ask them how they're adapting. But for now, let's turn over to our weatherman, Carzon Williams.
Thanks, Audrey, and welcome to the weekly weather report from MENA News. So let's take a look at our forecast for the upcoming week. We've been hit pretty hard by this recent heat wave, and the forecast really shows this. So the entire week we have a 0% chance of precipitation. Start on Sunday, we have a high of 93 with a low of 85. And then Monday we have a high of 90 with a low of 83. Tuesday, followed up with a 97 with a low of 91. Wednesday, we have a high of 101 with a low of 96. Thursday, with a high of 100 and a low of 97. And Friday, we have a high of 99 with a low of 96. And Saturday, it's 98 degrees for the high, and for the low, it's 91 degrees.
Thanks, Carzon. Now let's discuss the impact that all this hot, dry weather is having on some of the most integral people in our society, farmers.
They are some of the people most affected by water scarcity. Agricultural water scarcity is when there is an insufficient amount of water available for agricultural purposes. It's impacted heavily by variations in precipitation, and it has increasingly become a problem as climate change has worsened over the past decades.
Right. Agricultural production has decreased by 60% since the 2020s. Let's hear from a local farmer about how this is manifesting in her everyday life.
We turn our attention now to a farmer that has been affected by this ongoing drought. Joining us live from her farm in the Nile Valley, Egypt, is local farmer Madyy.
Thanks for having me.
So Madyy, could you describe what this drought has been like for you and your farm?
It's been very brutal. Most of all my crops yield less than half the amount of what they used to before the beginning of this drought. The pasture has dried up as well, causing me to buy hay to feed my cattle, making the cost of maintaining the farm very expensive.
How are you managing water shortage? Are there any restrictions in place?
Smart irrigation is a method of water crops that focus on only supplying water when needed, considering weather patterns, soil moisture, and plant condition. These restrictions have made irrigation much more efficient and further minimizing water usage.
What are some strategies you use to mitigate the impacts of water scarcity during this drought?
I've been practicing conserving farming, sustainable farming approach, which aims to increase the quality of soil itself. Some of these practices include no-till farming, crop rotation, and even cover crops. These practices will improve soil structures, increase organic matter, and enhance water retention and boost nutrition availability, leading to higher and more stable yields over time when lacking water.
And what message do you have for consumers who might be worried about rising food prices due to the drought?
Anyone can practice small practices to decrease the amount of unnecessary water usage. It's important to conserve water, especially in times like these. Also support local farmers.
And that wraps up our agricultural segment. Madyy, thank you for sharing your story with us today. We wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
Binah and Madyy, ongoing food and water scarcity due to conflict and climate change has severely impacted livestock and food security.
Since food and water are what we need to power our bodies, athletes are especially affected by this issue. They rely on consistent access to high-quality food and water to give them energy for their sports. Let's hear a little bit more about this from Binah.
Now let's turn our attention to Gabe, a professional soccer player based in Cairo, Egypt.
Thank you for having me today.
So Gabe, we know that peak performance is crucial in professional sports. Can you explain how the drought and food shortages have impacted your diet?
The drought has affected my diet in a major way. The lack of water has caused me dehydration, which is one of the worst things an athlete can have. During practices where water is the most crucial, I haven't been able to keep up in them as I was able to before. It has also affected the food part of my diet, also because without any clean water, I can't get access to the main fruits and vegetables that I eat. Without those, I had to switch from what I've been eating, which makes it harder for my body because my body has to adjust to something new. I can't maintain the same diet or hydration that I've had throughout my career, which is very tough because I feel like I have less energy and not as comfortable as I was before. The solutions that I did were finding substitutes of food that I would usually eat, having to resort to more like carbs instead of vegetables and fruits, and I rely more on energy drinks than I did before because there's not as much water.
Thank you for your time.
And now, a commercial break.
How do you genetically modify your crops? Genetically modifying your crops involves inserting or editing genes to give plants a desirable trait such as resistance or drought tolerance. When a scientist has identified and isolated a useful gene, they insert it to other plants to make the DNA grow modified cells into full plants and test them.
Thanks, Binah and Gabe. To summarize today's report, climate change is altering precipitation patterns and forcing citizens to change their habits and adapt to the new conditions.
Even though this dry world feels hopeless, there are technological solutions to the issues discussed. For example, some countries are already practicing desalination, which converts salt water into usable fresh water. This process is expensive and potentially harmful to aquatic ecosystems, but it will hugely increase our freshwater supply.
We can also genetically modify crops to make them more drought resistant, allowing our farmers to continue to produce the crops people like athletes need in order to maintain a nutritious diet.
Thanks for tuning in this evening. See you tomorrow night for more MENA news.